I doubt anybody has ever told you in your life that you experience the emotions that you create, and that you will experience the emotions that you create, and that you're the creator of those emotions, consciously or unconsciously, and that you can consciously create any emotion that you choose. Understanding this point can have a profound impact on your life. Just knowing that you can pick an emotion and create it is extraordinary. No one ever told me that that's how you became happy. It took me a while to figure out that I could create my own happiness. I didn't have to be dependent on anybody else to do it. But the creation of that emotion, that was a function of my will and my intent, and that took some mastery in getting a hold of. What I'm asking you to realize is that emotion is a result. It's a result of your intent to create. It may have been the result of how you create through a story. If you went into a story and you use a story to create the emotion, we use our intent to create the story, and a byproduct of the story is the emotion. My experience is that emotions are largely just an experience of feedback. Going back to the emotional body, if we look at the physical body and we touch something that's cold, we'll say that that temperature is just the sensation that we feel. But why do we feel something cold? We feel it because we put our hand on it. If we touch something hot and we burn our hand, that is just the feedback that we're getting, telling us what the temperature of that object is. Same thing with emotions, but emotions don't get created by tactile touch. If we believe in the story about ourselves that we're ugly, or that we're unworthy, or that we're stupid, we create that story about ourselves, and with our belief in it, we get the feeling of being unworthy, we get a feeling of being stupid, we get a feeling of being less than. If at another time during the week we do something successful and we feel great about ourselves, we think we're fabulous, we believe that story about ourselves, and the emotion we get is fabulous, or whatever that word is for it. It's ecstatic, it's joyful, it's self-love. And we get that emotion because we're believing in a story that produces that result. The emotion is a byproduct of believing in that story. If we believe judgmental, self-critical thoughts, we get the corresponding emotional feeling. If we believe wonderful, lofty, beautiful ideas of ourselves, we get the corresponding emotion. One of the big mistakes we make is that we then use the emotion that we feel as evidence. Pretty much for any story that we believe, we create an emotional response that corresponds to that story being true. That story is true only for us. And we have the experience of it being true because we believe it. This is how we create the emotions we create. We believe our stories. And our emotional body says, okay, we'll give you feedback for whatever you believe. When we have a story in our mind that we're not worthy, we're a failure, we get a corresponding painful emotion. The painful, unpleasant feeling isn't the problem. It's the aspect we notice, but it's not the problem. It's just pointing at a story that is saying, I'm unworthy, I'm a failure, I'm a loser. That story is the real cause of the pain. It's the splinter. The emotion is just a flag to us saying, hey, there's a lie here that needs to be removed. That painful emotion is helping us to point out the lies in our life. Bigger picture, what I want us to understand here is that emotional body is giving feedback for what's going on. They are something we create, either as a byproduct of perceiving something in our imagination or as a byproduct of perceiving something in life. They are our creations. And they are our creations that once we create it, we then perceive that emotion that we create. We create it, we express it, it comes out of us, and then we feel that emotion that we just created. Well, as we heighten our awareness of this dynamic, I'd like this to filter down into your language and the way you describe emotions and your experience with emotions. Specifically, the big distortion to pay attention to is anytime we say something to the effect, I'm so happy, I'm angry, I'm guilty. We need to be more precise, because if we go back to earlier sessions, we talk about the power of words. Well, we're not anger, we're not guilt, we're not happiness. Those are our creations, and we certainly aren't our creations. It gives our mind a distorted image of what we are, and now we lose ourselves in that misidentity. Because guilt or anger or happiness is just an emotion, which is just one aspect of what we're experiencing in that moment. Guilt that we feel or anger that we feel isn't what we are. So we need to dispense with phrasing our relationship to our emotions as I'm so angry or I'm so jealous. What we can say more accurately is that I'm experiencing this emotion of anger, I'm experiencing this emotion of jealousy, or I'm creating this experience of anger or jealousy. Just by shifting these words, we are adopting a different point of view that puts us out of the dream and the energetic force that emotions take us into, puts us more in a state of consciousness, awareness, and more specifically, choice. So we can decide if we want to act on that emotion that we're experiencing or not. If we are the emotion, if we claim in our mind and believe that we are that emotion, then we have very little choice in what we do other than what that emotion would have us do. But once we shift outside, which we can do or start to do just by shifting the language to I'm experiencing this emotion is what I'm feeling, now we are adopting more of a place of choice as the observer of the emotion instead of being swept away by the emotion. This changes our relationship to the emotion, and we are more and more in a place of power and choice and less in the reaction of what the emotion would carry us to do. This will help and facilitate refraining from reacting with emotion and at the same time allow us to not have to repress them. Because the challenge with emotion is to allow ourselves to experience them, to be present with them, but to do so from a place of, and this is particularly with the unpleasant emotions, to do it from a state of awareness and a place of choice, where we do not have to react in the direction that that emotion would have us be drawn to or tempt us to. Then we need to clean up our language. This will help us adopt a new point of view, to be an observer, to be in a more powerful place of choice over whether we act on that emotion or we can refrain. And while we refrain, we can still be present with the emotions that we're feeling.